Did you know that the rules around your retirement benefits are shifting right now? And that what you do not know could directly reduce your monthly income for the rest of your life? You've saved your entire life. You've hit $1 million. You're 60 or maybe even 62 now, and you're asking yourself the question that keeps so many of us awake at night. Can I actually retire? Or am I going to have to keep working? The problem is just having $1 million doesn't automatically mean you're ready. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know to answer that question for yourself. Hey, I'm Daniel Whitmore. I spent decades working in Social Security Administration and elder law, and I'm here to help you navigate this system with confidence, not confusion. Because retirement isn't just about having enough money, it's about having a plan that actually works. Today, I want to pull back the curtain and show you a real couple's story. Their names are Mark and Susan. They're both 60 years old. They came to me still working, asking that same question. Can we actually retire now? So let's walk through exactly what I told them, because their situation probably looks a lot like yours. Here's where Mark and Susan stand. Mark has his 401k. It's about $500,000. Susan has her 401k, around $311,000, plus a Roth IRA. They've got some cash in savings, a joint brokerage account, and their primary home. When you back out the home, they've got about $1 million across all their investments. That's their baseline. Now, what do they want? It's simple. They want to know if they can retire now. Or if not, what are the realistic options in front of them? Let's talk about what they were spending. Mark and Susan said, "Okay, Daniel, if we're going to retire, we want to live on $8,000 a month. That's their baseline living expenses, $8,000. But they also mentioned travel. They love travel. However, they wanted to separate those conversations. First, can we cover our basic living expenses? Then we'll layer in the travel budget. So $8,000 a month is what we're working with. That's about $96,000 in their first year of retirement, adjusted for taxes and inflation." Now, Mark was earning about $120,000 a year at his job. Susan was making about $95,000. But the moment they retire, those paychecks stop. That's a big change. What's going to replace that income? Well, they have Social Security waiting for them. Mark's full retirement age benefit, the amount he'd get at 67, is about $3,000 a month. But we're showing him waiting until 70 to claim. That means no income from Social Security for the next 10 years. Susan has a full retirement age benefit of about $2,000 a month at 67. We're showing her claiming at 67. So here's the puzzle. Their expenses start immediately, but their income, Social Security, doesn't kick in for years. So where does the money come from? Their portfolio. They need to pull money out of their savings to bridge that gap. Let me show you what that looks like. In year one, they need about $96,000 pulled from their $1 million portfolio. Year two, that number goes up. Year three, year four, year five. And the key question becomes, is this sustainable? To answer that, we need to look at something called the withdrawal rate. That's the percentage of your total portfolio you're taking out each year. Mark and Susan, we calculated it. In their first year, they're taking about 8.5% of their portfolio. Not too bad, right? But here's the problem. That number just keeps climbing. Because as their portfolio gets smaller, they still need the same amount of money to live. So the percentage gets bigger. When I showed them the projection, here's what it looked like. Their portfolio would be plummeting every single year. We're projecting they'd run out of money sometime in their late 70s or early 80s. And that's not the retirement any of us want to plan for. So at that point, Mark and Susan looked at the numbers and said, well, maybe retirement now isn't realistic. But here's the thing, and this is what I want you to hear. Seemingly small changes, tiny adjustments to when you retire or how much you work, those changes have profound impacts on your plan. So let's restart. What if Mark and Susan didn't retire at 60, but instead waited until 62? Just 2 more years of work. Let's see what that does to the math. 2 additional years of working changed everything. Suddenly, they have over 10 extra years of funding in their plan. The portfolio that was heading toward depletion in their early 80s, now it's looking much healthier at 90. 2 years. That's all it took. But then Mark and Susan said something interesting. They said, "Daniel, we actually really enjoy what we're doing. It's just that the demands are stressful. We don't want a full-time job forever. But what if we stepped back and worked part-time? Maybe consulting, maybe some other flexible work. And what if we did that until we were 70? We said, okay, what if between 62 and 70 you earned $40,000 a year combined? Not nothing, but not a high income either. Just enough to take the pressure off, to still let you travel and see your grandkids and enjoy life. The difference is night and day. Their plan transforms when you combine those two changes. 2 more years of full work, then part-time income from 62 to 70. Suddenly they're not looking at a desperate situation anymore. But then I suggested something else. I said, Mark and Susan, most retirees don't spend the same amount every single year until they're 95. That's not how life actually works. There's something called the retirement spending smile. You tend to spend more early on, when you're traveling, when you're active. Then spending tends to level off or even decrease a bit as you get older. You travel less, you're less active. Medical expenses might go up on the back end, but the overall pattern is spending doesn't increase perfectly with inflation year after year. So what if instead of assuming your expenses go up 3% every single year, we assume they go up about 2%? It's a small difference, but it compounds. When I showed them that revised projection, they couldn't believe it. The difference was dramatic. Suddenly, there was breathing room in their plan. Real breathing room. And then we circled back to travel. Remember when they mentioned travel at the start? Well, now there was room in the budget. So we asked, what if you dedicated $30,000 a year in those first 10 years of retirement just to dream travel? Europe, cruises, the trips you've been putting off. Could you retire and do that? They thought about it, looked at each other and said, with $30,000 a year for travel, we could do everything we want and then some. So we tested it, $30,000 extra per year for travel. And you know what? They were still on track. They could retire. They could travel. They could have security. But we didn't stop there. We also ran what's called a probability of success analysis. That's a fancy way of saying we stress tested their plan. We ran 10,000 different scenarios based on different market conditions, different inflation rates, different returns. And we asked, what percentage of the time does this plan work? The initial plan, where they retired at 60 and didn't travel, extremely low probability of success, maybe 30% at best, not something I'd recommend. But the updated plan, the one with 2 more years of full work, then part-time income, with the realistic spending assumptions and the travel budget, much higher probability of success, around 74% or higher. That means even if markets are rough, even if inflation spikes, they've got a legitimate shot at making this work. And the times when it doesn't? Well, they can make adjustments. They can shift travel spending. They can work a little longer. Small tweaks that keep the whole plan on track. Here's the big lesson, and I want you to really hear this. Retirement seems impossible when you're looking at the raw numbers. You see that you need $96,000 a year from $1 million portfolio, and your brain says, you can't do this. But when you start adjusting the variables, when you shift your retirement date, when you think about part-time work, when you account for how people actually spend in retirement, when you add back in the things you love like travel, suddenly that impossible situation becomes possible. And that's the real power of doing the math. It's not that the math is depressing, it's that the math shows you the levers. It shows you what matters. It shows you what a small change can do. So whether you're 60 like Mark and Susan, or maybe you're 62 or 65, the same principle applies. There's almost always a path forward. You might not be able to retire today. You might need to work 2 more years, or 5. You might need to think about part-time income. You might need to adjust your spending expectations. But there are levers you can pull. The key is to do the planning, because retirement isn't one size fits all. There's no magic formula. It's about understanding where you stand right now, understanding what your options are, and then pulling the right levers to make your retirement actually work. So if you're sitting there thinking, you know what, I thought we were nowhere close, but maybe with a few changes we could actually do this. If that's you, I want to encourage you to do the deep work. Get the numbers together. Run the scenarios. Talk to someone who can help you stress test your plan. Because I'm telling you, from years of experience helping people like you, when you get the numbers right, retirement stops being a dream and starts being a plan. And that's when the real peace of mind sets in. I'm Daniel Whitmore. If you want to keep learning about Social Security, Medicare, and how to navigate retirement, keep watching. And if you found this helpful, let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here.